Yo, this thought dump about to be thick.
Bum.
Hello. This is a very long time coming video that I should have made forever ago. But here we are, thought dump, grad school. I'm currently in my second year of occupational therapy school. Oh man, where do I even begin? Dude, I love making these videos. I pulled up the school's academic program so that I wouldn't leave anything out. And part of me was also thinking, okay, wow, I need to catch up on every single thing ever that I've done in my life ever since the last video. That's actually impossible. I will not be doing it. I also was thinking, should I do a class by class feedback? This was my experience and every single thing. I don't think I'm going to do that either. I just think if I went through every single thing, it would be so extremely long. But it's gonna be long anyway because it's been a fantastic year and a half. Slash, I don't know when the last video I posted, so even longer than that. But I did pull up the academic calendar because I wanted to at least say each class that I was a part of so that I could look back on it and be like, oh yeah, that's what I was doing. Great. All right, fall semester, year one, 18 hours. We had Foundations in Ethical Decision Making in Occupational Therapy. Occupational Behaviors and Occupational Behaviors Lab, also known as OB. We had Psychosocial Dynamics and Mental Health Promotion, Prevention, and Intervention. I actually don't think I knew that that was the full name of that class. I just called it Psychosocial Dynamics. One of my classmates called it Psychodynam. Psychodynam? Anyway, kinesiology slash anatomy, assessing human performance. And then we had kinesiology lab, clinical pathophysiology, introduction to scholarship, and leadership and public policy. Slay. Wow, that was just the fall semester. I just swiped a little further and it said spring semester, year one. And I was like, dude, I already did that. Okay, spring semester, I had 18 hours. It was Adult Human Development, Occupational Performance 1, Occupational Performance Lab, Clinical Studies, Neuroscience, Assessing Human Performance, Neuroscience Lab, Quantitative Research Process, Level 1 Fieldwork and Seminar Experience, Educational Strategies, and Occupational Therapy. Big slay. And then summer, we had 6 hours. We had Managing Occupational Therapy Delivery Systems, Qualitative Research Processes, and Special Topics Therapeutic Modalities. Year one total, drumroll, 42 hours. Okay, I'm gonna take a break from the academic calendar and just talk about year one. Occupational therapy school has been the absolute dream, truly. And I'm not trying to sound super dramatic when I say that. It has truly been a dream of mine since my senior year of high school when I shadowed an occupational therapist for the first time. I did not even know what it was, but the therapist that I shadowed was the accompanist of our school's choir, and she was cool, and it was senior skip day, aka job shadow day, or I guess it was job shadow day, aka senior skip day, but I was so stressed because I didn't know what I was doing after high school, and it felt like everybody else had their lives together, and that is not true, but it felt that way. She let me shadow her one day, which was so special, and little did I know it would actually change my life. Ever since 2017, I have wanted to go into occupational therapy, and now I have had the honor and the privilege of being in this program and being done with my first full year of graduate school, which is crazy. Oh, I'm drinking a little hibiscus immune support tea. Oh, let me grab something. One of our first ever assignments was to create a piece of art that represented occupational therapy. Or maybe, no, I think the assignment was just bring something that represents occupational therapy. Everybody in the class is just artistically inclined in some way. And so some people brought like cute PowerPoints, some people brought like really cute Canvas. Everyone ever in the cohort knows how to use Canva, which is wild. I've never used Canva more in my life than being in OT school. I brought this. It's a drawing of a boy, a guy just wiping away his tears. And on the bottom it says vulnerable, and it has little flowers. I don't know if that's changing anything on the lighting, but it's outlined in black, but it's also outlined in silver. And the silver is like pretty chaotic. It follows the lines, but it's all out of the lines. And the tears of this person are coming out the side of his eye. And to me, if I cry happy tears, it's like on the outside of my eyes. Whether if I'm sad, it's more like in the middle of my eye. I don't know if that's actual physiology for everybody or if that's just me. Come on. But I drew it like that because I think that life is found in the moments where there's just nothing but silence and a heart-to-heart connection with somebody, and often those moments bring tears to me. So I drew that because I think that occupational therapy is such a means of finding life in new things and life in new ways. I had no idea what the impact would be of my first year of occupational therapy school on my knowledge of just the definition of OT. I actually was reading an article today on AOTA, American Occupational Therapy Association, online, and I was reading the article and it said practitioners as a whole are moving away from the question, is this occupational therapy? And they're moving toward, is this something occupational therapy practitioners can do? And I was like, no way. That fires me up so much. Also, I just took a bunch of random notes in this my freshman year. Very chaotic notes. It started to look nice and then it progressively got not nice. And then I stopped. Yeah. I am normally a write on paper notes taker, but last year I found that it was more efficient for me to take notes online and then just keep everything in like organized files. I'm using an iPad as a computer. On the Files app, I have Matthew School and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's like first semester, second semester, third semester, all of that, so that I can just easily find everything. The first year I tried to use Notability. A lot of people in my cohort use Notability to take notes, and it's just not for me, and that's okay. You want a blanket? Here you go. For real. Ready? Yes. But I have found that just taking notes in the little notes section on PowerPoint is, one, free, and also works well for me. If I need to physically write something, I have Procreate for like artistic stuff, and so I can just use that as like an open document and then write something or draw something and then save it as a PDF and put it in my notes. That seems like a lot. I hope Birdie's in this shot. I can't see, but I hope so. Okay, I'm really just yapping. Let me talk more about academics. This is something that I have still that we made last year. I think this was in occupational performance lab. I'm not sure. But this is the first time we made orthotics. And so my classmate made this. The difference in a splint and an orthotic is specifically molded for you. It is subjective, and a splint is like a pre-made one that you could buy at the store. Yeah. Woo! So that's cool. Foundations. At the beginning of the year, foundations was my favorite class. A lot of people did not like foundations because it was just so much information and it was seemingly like so hypothetical because it's talking about frame of references and approaches and things, and that's very blanket statement. But I really enjoyed it because it was a lot of, okay, what if in this scenario, what would we do, and what's the ethics behind practicing in this way versus practicing in this way, and things like that. And so it was just a lot of like, in my head it felt like a philosophy class plus like a foundational level of occupational therapy, and I liked it. During our orientation, before all of this stuff that I'm talking about, we met all of our professors and the department chair and everyone, and it was just so wonderful. It was so wonderful. The whole room just felt carbonated because everybody was like, I want to be your friend, but also professionals, you know? So it was cool. There was just a lot of good energy is what I'm trying to say. Our professors encouraged us to see occupational therapy school as training for our jobs rather than school to get an academic grade. And that completely shifted something in my mind, and I am not worried about percentage grades. I didn't even know until the end of my first semester that you could see your grade. So I'm glad I was getting good grades. People were asking me what grades I had, and I was like, how do you even know? I knew what grades I was getting as I was taking things, but I didn't know like my overall percentage grade. That's never been a huge thought of mine. Like even in undergrad, I was more so just like, learn the material, the grade will reflect if I understand it. If I don't, I'll just study more. But in graduate school, it's even more so that for me. It is really like, okay, let me learn this material, let me do these practice scenarios, let me learn what's black and white, let me learn what's gray, let me learn what depends, all the things. And from there, the grade that I get on something will reflect my knowledge of the understanding. I feel like that shouldn't be so life-changing, but because it just sounds like that's what grades were set up to be, yeah, it was life-changing, I guess. So I am still seeing all of my classes as things to understand rather than things to perform in, and that has been a really great thing for me, especially because it's so wonderful to be in graduate school with people who want to be there. Like every single conversation, people want to talk, and people have things to say, and people have experiences, and also everybody just is there to listen and to learn. Classes are just engaging. Classes are fun. I just really enjoy, I just love being in school, and being in occupational therapy school is the best. I feel like this video has already probably been like 15 minutes, and have I said anything? I don't even know. Foundational things that we learned is the OTPF, which is the Occupational Therapy Practice Framework, and that is the basis of our scope. It's like, yo, if it's in this book, it's in our scope. Or if it's something we see, how can we apply our scope of practice to this thing that we see? So cool. Occupational therapy, I really came into OT school thinking that OT was physical therapy for fine motor. That's how I would describe it to people. And now I know that there is a similarity of that statement to certain parts of occupational therapy, but that's not what occupational therapy is. We have learned the strength of an interdisciplinary team among many practitioners, one specifically being PT. All of our professors are OTs. I think one of our professors is a PT, but all of those professors are currently practicing and also are our professors, which is just so wild. I feel so honored to be learning from all of their experience and their current experiences, and it's just wild. Oh, in occupational behaviors lab, that was so fun. Our first year, it was a very craft based class, and we were learning the things that through these crafts, what are we looking for, and how are we testing, and what are we practicing as physically going through these tasks and these activities. So if I were to administer this craft or activity with a patient, what am I looking for? Like, what's the purpose of doing this? Okay, whenever Birdie moves, I'll go get the cool like mosaic tile that I got to make in that class. That was a really fun thing we got to do, but I don't want to disturb the bird. All right. Leadership and public policy was a sleigh because we just learned more about ourselves. We had to like deep dive into ourselves in a way that I hadn't before. And it was like, what are your core values? What's your mission statement? And actually, let me see if I have that on here. I want to pull that up. Nice. My personal mission statement is own the strength to be gentle, seek God's character in others, reject mediocrity. These are all integral mindsets I've had, coming into my life at different times and adding on to one another. Owning the strength to be gentle was gifted to me through a friend. He commended me for my gentleness and how he saw it as a strength. I never thought much of my gentle character until he pointed it out, but I began to realize that gentleness is something I hold with high importance. And honestly, it's not always easy. The social expectation for me as a man, often from other men, especially older men, is that I am to be tough. And by tough, they mean bulldozing through others to assume authority. That's not who I am. I have zero interest in that. It takes strength to stand in who I am, and who I am is gentle. It does not make me better than them. It does not make me worse off than them. It makes us different. Confidently standing against the social stigma of male roughness is many things, one of them being strong. Seek God's character in others came to me from a freshman year English teacher, whose spiritual beliefs I do not know. I don't even remember the context of why she brought this up, but she said that others see God in you if you have the characteristics of God. It seems like a basic thought, but it really shifted my mind. I believe that the characteristics of God are the biblical fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. If I practice those virtues, others will see God in me, just as they see my mom in my smile. This phrase returned to me as I read the book Fearfully and Wonderfully by Brand and Yancey. These authors were doctors who worked with people with leprosy in India. With my eyes watering at the close of every chapter, my biggest takeaway is that they saw these people bear the image of God just as much as they bear the image of God. This made me think of all populations. Every difference I am from someone else. Everyone bears the image of God just as much as I do. If I believe it for myself, I believe it for everyone. It is my deep joy to seek God's character in others, for I connect with God in the recognition of his diversity. Reject mediocrity is a phrase that was painted above my basic military training bay, our homeroom. No one ever said those words to me, but the paint on the wall stays with me. The 8 weeks of intense military discipline, accountability, and effort for excellence is wrapped up in this phrase. It is my choice and my duty to reject anything other than my best. I know that is lofty, and I have balanced that in different ways since connecting with the phrase. Ultimately, though, I step out of less than. I step out of half effort. I step out of who I can choose to be, and I step into who I am created to be. I am capable. I am ready. I am. And I get to declare that over myself. Choosing to reject mediocrity for myself and others sets me on fire. It is an absolute life changer. Gosh, rereading that fires me up. I loved doing that assignment because it allowed me to wade through so many things that I've thought of in my life, or like quotes that I've held on to, and boil it down to just a few simple things that encompass all of them. And it is those 3 things. And I think that that is really special, and that was a wonderful assignment. I hope that my camera is still going. I can't see because it's on the back camera, so I'm either just talking to my cat or I am recording, and I will see this later. Dude, okay, anatomy. Anatomy was wild. It was so much information. Anatomy lab was also a wild experience. This is the first time I ever worked in a cadaver lab and have learned from other human bodies. The first week of anatomy lab, we had an entire lecture during lab before we even went to the cadaver lab, talking about the purpose of why we are going, the purpose of studying on humans, and we talked about just the mindset that we are to have when we are in the cadaver lab. I am so glad that we had this lecture because it is just so important. Our professors talked about the ethics and the background of where these bodies came from, and that they were willingly donated, and like it was the desire of the person who died to give their body to this specific organization to allow me to learn. And I think that that is one of the most spiritual and also just human grounding things to think about, that somebody gave me their shell of a body. They gave their whole body in order for a student they don't even know to learn just a little bit, in order to help somebody else in the future. That is baffling. It is incredibly admirable, and I feel so honored to, ready, back up. I just feel so honored to have worked and learned in that cadaver lab. It's just an incredible privilege to have been able to work in a cadaver lab and study on real people. So that was wild. Everybody had mixed feelings about it going into it, during, and afterward. Understandable. Everybody has different experiences leading up to that, and also just things are different for everyone. I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't have much of an expectation other than the tangible fact that I would be standing there touching a body that is dead. There was one week where I was really the most wigged out, and it was the week when we were working on hands and learning forearm muscles. I think that was our second lab. It just shook me a little bit. Other than that, it was okay. I didn't feel squeamy, I didn't feel squeamish, just felt really grateful. And at the same time, it's actually wild. It's like, this is gross and this is incredible at the same time. Okay, moving on. Clinical studies was really cool. Our spring semester, that was the first class, I think, that was like, here's a bunch of case studies. So basically like, yo, this is the situation. You're the occupational therapist, go, what would you do? It was very scaffolded, meaning we took it one step at a time. We learned how to write notes. We learned how to write goals. We learned different things about intervention. I'm in clinical studies 2 right now, and having clinical studies 1 definitely was such a benefit before this class, which makes sense because it's CS1 and CS2. Neuroscience was wild. Neuroscience was an absolute slay. We as the students walked out of that class like, okay, so that made sense. And that's really cool. And like, maybe I'm smart or something. Yeah, that was also just a baffling class. I feel like so many classes, I'm like, gosh, I can't even, like, I didn't even know to think about these things. And then you leave that class and you're like, yo, I know those things. That's crazy. Okay, summer, I did learn. I am not a 1 semester in a month boilie. That is really difficult for me to have a slam course on a topic. That's really difficult for me. Overall, not very enjoyable. The things that I was learning was really enjoyable, but the execution of it was something that I've never done before, and it was very difficult. Okay, I don't really even know what all to say about academics. Let me just check real quick to make sure that this is still recording. Okay, period, it's still recording. The first year of OT school is just wonderful because I met people who were passionate about something similar. People who want to make a difference, people who are currently making a difference, people who just love people so practically, so tangibly. It's just the biggest honor to know the people in my cohort, truly, and to know my professors, and to know that occupational therapy exists. Yeah. At the beginning of the year, people were just kind of moving around tables, getting to know more people, and then everybody, for the most part, just like kind of landed at a table. And then at the start of the next semester, some people moved tables and like got to just experience school with another group of people. And then I think at the beginning of the second year too, some more people moved around. It is special because I think that my cohort is very inclusive and everybody can work with everybody, and I feel happily acquainted with everybody in there. I also am grateful that there are just organic groups of friends, like people who have sat at their table together, just like go and hang out. And I love seeing photos of people in my cohort just hanging out with each other, or like people who don't sit together hanging out, or like going on trips. It just really makes my heart jump because I'm like, people connecting. Okay, I could sit here and talk about my first year of occupational therapy school for hours and hours and hours, but I would probably have to write it all down and then have like a really straightforward, this is what I'm talking about, this is what I'm talking about. But since this is a thought dump and I'm just dumping thoughts, I guess I'll move on. Okay, Belmont's campus. Belmont's campus is so beautiful. I am biased to UT Martin's campus because I experienced more school there, and just like the transition of becoming an adult and having individual experiences and all the things. But that has nothing to do with occupational therapy. Go Skyhawks, baby. My first year, I really just explored the campus a lot. I went into every building that I could go into because my tuition is paying for all of the buildings. So I would sit in the library and I found a cute little spot by a window. There's a new building as of my first year there, I think. And it's awesome. There's a lot of places to study. Okay, I do want to give a quick shout out to my homie Nashville State. When I was taking prerequisite classes at Nashville State over the summer before occupational therapy school, I was just blown away at how for students it was. It was so student-centered, it was incredible. I just went to the library and showed them my student ID, and I got to rent dry erase markers and erasers and literally anything. I rented a whole computer for free at Nashville State Community College by just giving them my student ID, and I was able to use that for school, and that is such a blessing. Belmont doesn't do any of those things, and it's way more expensive.
But I digress.
On the top of the new building, there is a wraparound balcony, and it's a really tall building, and I would go up there in the colder months right in the morning to see the sunrise, and it is so marvelous. It just started getting darker earlier again, and I'm actually really excited because that means I can get to campus early in the dark and watch the sunrise again. Sitting up there, listening to some good music, or just being in the sounds of campus. Being in some crispy cold weather, all bundled up and with some hot tea, watching the sunrise is so wonderful. I think I'm gonna stop this here, and then if I do another video, it'll be about my second year, because I feel like if I do double videos, this will just be an hour long, and maybe it's already an hour long, so we'll see when I edit it. Prepare for another inconsistent upload.